Hi, and welcome to today's presentation. My name is Teresa Bruni, and I am the healer at Less Fear, More Flow. And today I'm with Keith Senzer. Keith is a youth empowerment coach at PowerShift Coaching. Keith helps teens find their true north and follow it through their words and actions to create more loving, accepting, responsible, and committed adults. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Keith.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you and I connected on LinkedIn probably about 6 months ago. And I am just, I'm so passionate about the work that you do because there's just a special place in my heart for kids. I wish I had someone like you when I was growing up. My childhood was especially challenging, and that's why I chose not to have children, because I really didn't know that it could be any other way until I was well into adulthood. I just wish I had that guidance. And that's why I'm so passionate about your work. We've come together today to talk specifically about why our youth of today lack emotional intelligence. So how do you define emotional intelligence?
So, I mean, the true definition of emotional intelligence is really, it's the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in a positive way so you can relieve stress, learn to communicate effectively, empathize with others, and overcome challenges and diffuse conflict. That's really the generic definition of emotional intelligence. Okay,
and how would that benefit our kids, just so everyone's clear on why this is important?
Yeah, well, so there's 5 parts of emotional intelligence, right? There's self-awareness, which is, being aware of what's working and what's not working, or how you're being. There's self-regulation, which is controlling your emotions, learning not to react, learning to think before you speak. There's motivation, being self-motivated and towards a goal. There's empathy for others. And then there's the social skills piece. And technically, teenagers, they, the way their brains develop, emotional intelligence is not something it takes time to grow. It takes time to develop. But really, one of the issues I think we have here, at least in this country, is, and I will say it's gotten better. I mean, I am a big proponent of education, and I do think schools do the best they can with what they have. But it's only recently that we've really started making youth mental health and emotional intelligence part of curriculum. It's always been very academic. So my generation, right? We talk about our generation. We're talking about, we didn't have any of these skills. We learned math, science, English, social studies, whatever. That was it. They're starting to finally teach these things, and that's why I think you'll notice a lot more kids are. I mean, just think about kids that have come out at a younger age, right? When I was in school, these men or women I went to school with, they were in their 30s before they were comfortable coming out and being their authentic selves. And I think because of empathy and because we're doing a better job teaching it, I think kids are a lot more open and accepting. And as a result, it's made it more comfortable for other kids to be who they want to be authentically. I still think we have a very, very long way to go. And I don't think there's enough programming in the schools or enough schools teaching this. But we're definitely moving in the right direction. I will say that. So, but that's really why.
Yeah, well, things certainly have changed over the years, haven't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so I think most of us on any given day are doing the very best that we can. I choose to believe that. It helps me cope in this ever-changing world. And so on that note, I'm going to say that I suspect that most parents are doing the best that they can with the tools that they were given as children and adults. But would you agree that oftentimes parents maybe miss the mark because they're too close to the situation?
I definitely think so. I think a big piece of it too is social media and the access to information. Like when you think about it, when we were growing up, if I walked through the cafeteria and I tripped and spilled my food all over, everybody would laugh, and I'd go home and be done. Nobody remembered the next day. Now you'd have somebody filming it on their phone, posting it on social media. So there's so much more opportunity for our kids to be subject to like bullying. And I think as parents, listen, we love our kids, right? I have 2 kids. I mean, they're in their 20s, but I love my kids. I'll do anything for my kids. And sometimes we want to protect them, and our own anxieties get in the way. So as parents, I think sometimes we don't manage our anxiety well around our children. And the reason I brought up social media is because we know how much that impacts our kids and how much they're on it, and how sometimes if something is something said that was hurtful, like our kids are going to suffer from that. So we, as parents, we didn't grow up with all this technology and all this access to information that our kids have. So I think that, it definitely worries us as parents. And I think sometimes we let our anxiety get the best of us. And what we think is being a good parent, we're actually putting our anxiety on our children. And then they become anxious in certain situations. And then, you've got, I'm sure you heard the term, right? You've got the helicopter parents that are just on top nonstop, right? And those kids feel stifled. And they're not going they're not going to tell you that. They're going to lash out, or they're going to act differently, but they're not going to say to you, hey, stop doing, they may, but if you're that way, it's going to be hard for you to back off. And then you've got the snowplow parents who, they plow all the obstacles out of the way so the kids don't have to see that. And the truth is, we learn by failing. We have to fail to grow. So I will say, like, the one thing I always get pushback on from parents when I'm working with their kid is that, because I will say, let them fail. But it's a stupid idea. I know I agree with you, it's a stupid idea, but they don't think it's a stupid idea. And if they don't want to hear your opinion, or they're not open to hearing what you have to say, as long as it's not dangerous, let them follow through with their stupid idea, because they're going to realize on their own it's a stupid idea. And then they're going to learn that lesson, and they're not going to do that again. But if you just tell them it's a stupid idea, it's just going to make them want to do it even more, So, I think that as parents, we just have to sometimes, we have to trust our kids that they're going to be okay, and we have to trust the process, because if we try to protect them too much, they don't understand failure. And I see this most with kids who are freshmen in college, for the first semester, and they go, and all of a sudden they're on their own, and they have to do all this on their own, and they're completely overwhelmed because somebody was always there to help them.
Right.
And, so that's a big red flag. When your kid's in college freshman year and calling you every couple of days asking for help, or telling you something's going on, they're struggling. You need to be aware of that. And the way to avoid that is teach them these skills when they're young. Let them fail. Let them screw up.
Yeah.
Be smart. Like, obviously, you're not going to let them fail at something that's dangerous or is going to endanger them or put them in such a terrible situation. But for the most part, what are they doing that's really going to, so somebody doesn't want to be friends with them because of the way they approach them. Well, that kid's not right for them anyway then.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything that you've said makes perfect sense. I think it might be challenging for parents to be able to pull back their lens. I talk with my clients a lot about that, pulling back that lens. And I call it the alien view, or the 10,000-foot view, and look down upon the situation as if you're an outsider looking in and see where you can make adjustments. I also talk a lot with my clients about, we learn by example. So you talked about, if the parent is stressed, if the parent is walking around constantly stressed, we, as children, we think that that's the way that life is supposed to be. And so if you have a parent that's stuck in anger, or stuck in confusion, or stuck in grief for whatever reason, maybe I get this a lot. For some reason, fathers like to check out, and mothers are left to raise the family. And so that grief isn't dealt with. And so that plays a role in, I get them as adults, right? So, but I'd like to go back to the parent who stifles. Could you give us some ideas of what kind of problems that causes for the youth?
Well, for one, like I said, they don't, when you stifle your kid and you don't let them make a decision for themselves, they don't learn decision-making skills, and when they have to make a decision, they're going to be looking at you for validation. So all of the decisions that they make are going to be because you said it's okay, or because you agree with them, versus just making that decision on their own and being comfortable with it regardless of the outcome. So that for one is a big one. the other piece of this is, and it kind of ties in, it's more like, how do you talk to your kids? How do you talk to your kids? I always say, don't, your kids are very smart. Don't talk at them, talk to them, right? If you struggle with anxiety, right? Like, my wife is great with this, like with my daughter, because my daughter struggles with anxiety. And near the beginning, I think they both struggle a little bit, with each other with that. The lash out, are they going to act differently? But they're not going to say to you, hey, stop doing, they may, but if you're that way, it's going to be hard for you to back off. And then you've got the snowplow parents who, they plow all the obstacles out of the way so the kids don't have to see that. And the truth is, we learn by failing. We have to fail to grow. So I will say, like, the one thing I always get pushback on from parents when I'm working with their kid is that, because I will say, let them fail. But it's a stupid idea. I know I agree with you, it's a stupid idea, but they don't think it's a stupid idea. And if they don't want to hear your opinion, or they're not open to hearing what you have to say, as long as it's not dangerous, let them follow through with their stupid idea, because they're going to realize on their own it's a stupid idea. And then they're going to learn that lesson, and they're not going to do that again. But if you just tell them it's a stupid idea, it's just going to make them want to do it even more, So, I think that as parents, we just have to we have to trust our kids that they're going to be okay, and we have to trust the process, because if we try to protect them too much, they don't understand failure. And I see this most with kids who are freshmen in college, for the first semester, and they go, and all of a sudden they're on their own, and they have to do all this on their own, and they're completely overwhelmed because somebody was always there to help them.
Right.
And, so that's a big red flag. When your kid's in college freshman year and calling you every couple of days asking for help or telling you something's going on, they're struggling. You need to be aware of that. And the way to avoid that is teach them these skills when they're young. Let them fail. Let them screw up.
Yeah.
Be smart. Like, obviously, you're not going to let them fail at something that's dangerous or is going to endanger them or put them in such a terrible situation. But
right.
For the most part, what are they doing that's really going to, so somebody doesn't want to be friends with them because of the way they approach them. Well, that kid's not right for them anyway then.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything that you've said makes perfect sense. I think it might be challenging for parents to be able to pull back their lens. I talk with my clients a lot about that, pulling back that lens. And I call it the alien view, or the 10,000 foot view, and look down upon the situation as if you're an outsider looking in and see where you can make adjustments. I also talk a lot with my clients about, we learn by example. So you talked about, if the parent is stressed, if the parent is walking around constantly stressed, we, as children, we think that that's the way that life is supposed to be. And so if you have a parent that's stuck in anger, or stuck in confusion, or stuck in grief for whatever reason, maybe I get this a lot. For some reason, fathers like to check out, and mothers are left to raise the family. And so that grief isn't dealt with. And so that plays a role in, I get them as adults, right? So, but I'd like to go back to the parent who stifles. Could you give us some ideas of what kind of problems that causes for the youth?
Well, for one, like I said, they don't, when you stifle your kid and you don't let them make a decision for themselves, they don't learn decision-making skills, and when they have to make a decision, they're going to be looking at you for validation. So all of the decisions that they make are going to be because you said it's okay, or because you agree with them, versus just making that decision on their own and being comfortable with it regardless of the outcome. So that for one is a big one. The other piece of this is, and it kind of ties in, it's more like, how do you talk to your kids? How do you talk to your kids? I always say, don't, your kids are very smart. Don't talk at them, talk to them, right? If you struggle with anxiety, right? Like, my wife is great with this, like with my daughter, because my daughter struggles with anxiety. And near the beginning, I think they both struggle a little bit, with each other with that. My daughter knows my wife has anxiety. My wife, she knows, she talks about it. I struggle with this. So when I'm being like this, understand why I'm being like this. I'm not doing it to get on your case. It's my anxiety. Maybe you can let me know when I'm being like that, so I can. So, like, you actually can have your child help keep you in check, to help keep them in check. Like, it's dialogue. A lot of times, I'm the parent. This is the rule. This is the way it is, and you have to listen. But kids don't view things, again, they're depending on their age, their minds are not as developed as ours. So they don't always get the connection. So you got to talk to your kids. Don't talk at them, because if you have a conversation and they understand, wow, mom, I realize, or dad, you're really sad right now because of what happened to so-and-so. Like, I get it. I'm going to give you your space. Like, they will. Every kid wants to please their parent. No kids out there not wanting to be a good child and not please their parent. But if you can actually let them know what you're struggling with, first of all, it gives them permission to share what they're struggling with. It opens up dialogue. And that's what we need in this country, right? If we can all talk about our mental health and our struggles with each other, even parents, like if you tell my kid that, what are they gonna think of me? Okay. They're gonna think you're human. They're gonna recognize it's okay to be human. It's okay to be 30, 40, 50 years old and have these struggles. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You're human. We're all flawed. And I
Thank you.
See that, it actually gives them permission to share what's going on with them, and that way they'll talk to you. I know you say you have kids, but I can tell you right now, if I say to my kids, "Don't do this," the first thing you're gonna do is what I told them not to do. So,
I know.
Right?
I don't have kids, but I was a kid.
Yeah. But if you say to them, "Hey, so like, I'm not sure I understand why you want to do that. Can we talk about it?" And we talk about it, I think then, there's conversation. They're going to hear you. They're going to be open to understanding. It's because kids want to be validated. That's the other piece. Like, as parents, sometimes we invalidate them because we're the parent. It's the power struggle. And again, when I say these things, I'm not saying it in the hopes that, our kids are going to run the roost and they're in control. No, we're the parent. We're in charge. We make the rules. But you know what? When they're not following the rules, yelling and screaming doesn't solve it either, right? It's like, hey, do you understand why I'm upset? Like, questions. Ask your kids questions. Like, when you want to have a conversation, ask questions, because questions will make them think and have to answer. And when they answer questions, that's how the self-awareness piece gets in. That's how they start to be aware of how they're being. And then it helps with the self-regulation piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah. That's all I ever wanted, was to be listened to be heard, right? And of course, I come from the generation of children should be seen and not heard, right? And the adults, in normal course of life, the adults would do things as if the children as if they don't know what's going on, or they're not paying attention. Well, here's the eye opener. Kids are always paying attention. Even if they're not looking at you, their radar is out and they're paying attention to every action and every word. So yeah, be careful. That whole do as I say, not as I do, that doesn't fly with kids.
No.
Wouldn't you agree?
100%. I work with a lot of kids with ADHD, and my son has severe ADHD. And I will tell you, what you just said is so true, because he would be the kid in class that would be fidgeting and looking all around and, playing with his paper clips and his rubber bands and his squishy ball, whatever, right? And teacher's lecturing, and, he's not even looking at her. And, if they don't know that they have ADHD, or they don't recognize that's what's going on, she'll point to him and be like, "Brett, what did I just say?" And he'll nail it.
Nice.
He heard everything she was saying. It's just the way he functions, the way he learns is different. He can't sit there and stare at you. He's got to do his thing, but he's listening. It's the same thing at your house. Like when I coach adults too. I work for a healthcare company called Lyra. Amazing company. And a lot of the adults that I coach, a lot of the conversations that come up are, these are behaviors I have now. And when we start talking about it, we realize, you grew up in a household where this was the behavior. So this is a learned behavior. And now you're applying that behavior to your family, because that's what you know. No one ever said to you, hey, there's a better way. And that's what we were saying. Like, when we were growing up, we didn't. I wish I had somebody like me to help me. I mean, I struggled with so much growing up. Yeah. And if I would have had some of these strategies, for sure, I think, not that I want anything to turn out differently, but I'm sure maybe things would have been a little easier, for sure.
Yeah. And so again, that's what I have that conversation with my clients a lot, that their parents learned by example from their parents, and so on up the line. And things do slowly change over time. But when we become aware of that, and when we realize that we do have a choice in how we react and respond to our youth, we can fast track those changes. And that's why you and I are here having this conversation today, so that we can, because our youth, they truly are our future. So shaping those lives, someday you're going to depend on these children that are growing up now. You never know. They might be your brain surgeon someday, right? So let's pull all of the potential out of them that we possibly can. Let's empower them to be all that they can be. And that being said, how do you feel that social media is impacting our youth? And I'm asking you specifically because I know that you get to talk to these adults, young adults.
Sure. So, look, you can always find the positive in social media, right? I mean, especially with COVID, right? It allowed kids to stay connected. So, I mean, there's certainly positives to it, right? I mean, it wasn't created. I don't think when social media was created, it was created with the intent of all these negative things. But the problem with social media is, number one, especially with girls, right? Like the body shaming, it goes both ways. The girls that'll post something on TikTok or Instagram, that have a nice body. Those other girls who don't, right? They feel uncomfortable. They feel shame. They compare themselves. But then some of those girls get upset. But the truth is, some of these other girls who feel like, well, I'm proud of my body. Why can't I? Right? So you get it both ways, right? There's one side who's upset and feels completely shamed and like, I wish I looked like that. It makes them feel bad. And then there's the other side that gets bullied for putting up those photos, and they're like, but I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just sharing my experience at the beach with my friends. It's not my fault that I look good, right? So body shaming. Also, just like I was saying earlier, like if something happened in school and you were bullied, like it was over. Like you got home, it was over. Now somebody took a picture, somebody filmed it. It's on social media. People there's so much cyberbullying that takes place, and that's another danger of social media. The other thing is just the access to, I don't know if you ever saw, I forgot, it was a Netflix movie. I think it's called The Social Experiment, but I
did see it.
Social Dilemma. And, they show you this like dark room with these guys in the background. And then like, they're watching this kid's phone. And when they click on that, okay, send this, like that really is what's going on. It's not a person, artificial intelligence, but these kids, like I've seen kids post something on Instagram and take it down because they didn't get enough likes. Right. And when I see that, I always tell them, I'm like, you understand, like the people that did like it, that's your people. That's your tribe. Those are the people you should be connecting with. If you're taking it down because you're not getting enough likes, you're basically you're valuing yourself on the likes that you're getting on a post. Like if that's how you value yourself, that's really kind of scary, right? I would rather get 10 likes, but be like, hey, those are 10 people that I can connect with, that are going to understand me, that are going to get me, that appreciate me,
Right.
So a lot of because there's that dopamine hit, right? When you get a like, it's like that addiction, right? That there is a dopamine hit when you get a like. So these, of course they're going to keep checking, and it keeps them on social media. It's so hard for them to turn off, and they start to value their self-worth based on, on their social media profile, which I think is crazy. And then the other thing is just like I call phones weapons of mass distraction, because it's like doing homework. Like I use this, I do a lot of executive functioning coaching too. And I'll say to kids, like, think about a steam engine, right? You have to put the coal in, you have to blow the bellows, you have to get the fire to go. It takes a while to get that engine going. Once that engine's going, it doesn't stop. Like nothing can stop a steam engine. Well, the minute you pick up your phone in the middle of doing homework or studying and texting, the engine just stopped. You have to now put the coal back in. You got to start. It starts all over. So like if you were like at your peak, you just kind of became stupid, and now you got to start all over again to get back to that peak. And that's why it takes kids so much longer to get homework done. It's like, oh, it took me 5 hours to do homework. Well, you didn't need 5 hours. It took you 5 hours because you checked your phone 25 times, and you kept getting distracted and having to start from scratch.
Yeah, and in all honesty, that happens to us adults as well, right? I mean, you pick up your phone, it happens to me. I go to pick up my phone and it dings, and that gets my attention. And 5 minutes later, I'm saying to myself, why did I pick up my phone 5 minutes ago? Because I've already forgotten why I had picked up my phone. So it is, and I feel that that's a big contributing factor to our anxiety. So not in your age group, but the millennials are under incredible amounts of stress. And I often describe our little handheld devices. If you don't temper it and you don't have your settings set properly, I describe it as having a 2-year-old tagging at your pant leg all day long. Eventually you're going to lose it. Okay. Person can only take so much. So it's really, really important to step away from all of our devices. For me personally, I take a tech Sabbath. So make sure that I take a day off. How would you, how can parents know if social media is having a negative impact on their kids? What can they be watching out for?
Well, for one, there's a couple of things. I mean, the first thing is just how much are they on their phone, right? Is that phone with them? Did they bring it to the dinner table? Is it everywhere they go? I mean, that right there is a clear signal they're way too attached to it. But I think sometimes too, it's, look, it's hard to follow something. Like my kids are great. They let me follow them. They'll accept my invitation. So I know what they're posting and I see what they're posting, But, if you have access to your kids' information and you're friends with them or you're following them and you're able to see what they post, it's just watching what they're posting and seeing how they're responding. People are commenting. What are they responding to? Being aware of that. The other thing too is because this has a lot to do with it, especially with COVID. If your kids like my son would always be in his room, but he would go out. He would go out and see friends. He would do things. He wasn't trapped in there, so I felt okay. But if my son was in his room constantly, never leaving, and he was in there with his phone as a computer, as a parent, I would definitely poke my head in and be like, hey, is everything okay? Just checking in, letting them know it's kind of a subtle way of letting them you're watching them. But really, it's so hard to follow because a lot of your kids are, listen, they have the Finstas, right? The fake Instagram accounts. I mean, they have so many ways of hiding from you,
right?
As a parent. So
right.
Really, those are things you can do, but really you got to know your kid. You got to talk to them. You got to have conversations with them. You got to ask questions and see the responses you're getting, because those are the kind of things that are going to, like if you say to your kid, hey, how was your day today? And it's always, oh, it was fine. It was fine, right? But it's always like this kind of, it's fine, right? Something's going on, right? If your kid says, hey, can you pick me up early from school today? I'm not feeling well. And then they come home and all of a sudden they're fine. Something happened, right? Go back to emotional intelligence, even as parents, we have to be self-aware because we get caught up. We get busy with work and what we're doing and running around. You really have to pay attention to your kids, their behaviors, what they say, how they say it, body language. All of these things are going to clue you in as to if something's going on. And then, like I said, it's just asking questions, right? Instead of saying, something's wrong. I can tell something's wrong. I can tell by the way you're acting. They're going to tell you everything's fine. If you say, hey, you seem a little down today. Is everything okay? They might not answer you right away, but you ask enough questions, they will eventually answer. But social media is hard. It's really hard to see what's going on in social media. I think it's more their behaviors around, whether it's around the house, around other people. It's their behaviors that are going to clue you in as to when something's going on.
Okay, excellent. I just want to acknowledge Maureen and Miriam are giving us some pretty nice compliments here. Thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to just type your questions for Keith in the chat box, and we'll be happy to address those questions. So you talked about the lockdowns. Could you speak a little bit about the positive and negative impact that the lockdowns have had on our youth? Sure.
Well, positive, I mean, there's some positive, right? I mean, it was definitely more negative than positive. I do think the positive impact, I don't know that it had on them, but definitely had on family, because it forced family to be together. It kind of forced your kids to be, right? Like my kids, they'd much rather go out and hang out with their friends. They don't want to hang out with me and my wife. But when there was nowhere to go, we actually had dinner a couple of nights a week as a family. We talked. So, I mean, there was that aspect of it. I do think, even though our kids are technologically much more technologically sound than we are, even the whole Zoom and this live conversation, this wasn't something they were doing. So I think learning on Zoom isn't great. I don't agree. I think that was a hard way to learn from an education standpoint. But I think from the connection standpoint, I think kids who struggled socially with social skills and don't have a lot of friends gave them an opportunity to kind of hide behind the screen and connect with people without having to be, because a lot of kids have social anxiety. So not having to be in the room with them, this is a little safer, which is kind of funny to me because it really is the same thing. Whether you're right in front of me or whether you're at a TV screen or a computer screen, you still have to speak. But for some reason, that computer gives them a safety net. So I feel like a lot of kids who struggle with social anxiety had an opportunity to, connect with others. So it was definitely good for that. And I definitely think it was good for the family dynamic in that sense. Other than that, I think there was a lot of negative, right? Kids were on the computer all the time. There was nowhere else to go. It was the only way to connect. I mean, like learning. I mean, there's just nothing. Even when I do like my workshops with youth, like I like working with virtually. I much prefer to be with the kids in person because I talk with my hands, right? Like,
right.
I'm much more engaging when I'm in person. Like you can engage and you can read body language. You can, if I see this, it's like their head's there, right?
Yeah.
The phone's right there. So it's
right.
It's much harder to learn. These kids are on, the teachers are saying, okay, go look at this video on YouTube. Well, yeah, they're on YouTube now because they're on the computer. So it definitely was bad. And Miriam's for less fear of missing out, which is definitely true. That she's definitely right about that. But just it's not good for anybody. Being online all the time, being on the computer, and also just the connection. Like my kids are back at my son's back at college now. Like I have not seen him this happy. He was home for a year and a half. Like he could not wait to get the hell out of the house. Now he's out, but he's great. He's doing well. He's made friends. He's like all the things that he wanted that he couldn't do, he's finally doing. And like all these kids that missed out on their graduations or even freshmen in college. Like, listen, let's face it. You're supposed to learn in college, but it's supposed to be the best 4 fun years of your life, right? Your kids are going to go and party and have a good time. Like college is about growing up and exploring. And, these kids did not get the college experience. So it's, kids doing that. I mean, that's a big thing. It's a year in your life. My son missed a year and a half of his college education being at home with me and my wife, so it's a lot of negatives. I mean,
the other part of that college education that comes with living on your own and interacting with others, really being out in the world for the first time, right? Yeah.
So it led to a lot of depression, a lot of depression. I mean, so many kids were struggling with depression and anxiety. Kids that are already anxious are so much more anxious now because, believe it or not, I know people like, oh, so great, it was online. Kids that want to do well, they did not want to learn online. They much prefer to be in the classroom, so there was anxiety around that and being able to learn and understand the material and be able to follow along. A kid with ADHD sitting behind a TV, forget it. It's hard enough to focus in class, but at least in class, you know what body doubling is? It's like when you're working, but there's other people around, so it kind of helps you focus because there's other people around. When there's nobody else around, it's just you and your computer. There's a million distractions going on in your bedroom, or your living room. So a lot of depression, a lot of kids that are already suffering with anxiety or struggling with like low-level depression. This definitely exasperated it.
Do you have any resources for parents whose children may be struggling with those things?
I mean, so we, without plugging my non-for-profit, I mean, I always say this, right?
Yes, let's plug your not-for-profit, please.
But let me say this, that okay. I'm a big proponent of help. And if your kid's open to it, if you have a child struggling with depression, absolutely reach out to a therapist, like get them to talk to somebody, even as a coach, I'm good with dealing with, like, I can work with kids that struggle with depression, but I always like to do it along with a therapist. Like we work in tandem, I'm not trained to deal with depression, but I can definitely work with a therapist to do that. So if a kid's struggling with that, get them the help. But truthfully, one way to deal with it too is a lot of adults don't know when a kid's struggling. So I run a non-for-profit called the Sofia Balsamos Foundation. And, one of the programs that we have, we do youth mental health training. And what we do is we go into organizations that work with youth, whether it's a school, a charter school, a foster care, anybody, anybody that deals with youth. We'll even run it at like a local JCC or a YMCA for parents, and we train them on the signs and what to look for in a child who's struggling with some form of depression, before it becomes suicidal. And we talk about that too. We train on suicidal thoughts. If you have a child who's said that, like my kids, I'll never forget my son, with his ADHD and his anxiety and his OCD, one point he said, if this doesn't change, I'm gonna kill myself. Like he said that, right? And at the time, this was way before, he was a lot younger, way before I was so involved in this world. And first thing a therapist said, "What's your plan?" Blah, blah. No plan. He was just saying it. It was an attention thing. But as a parent, you hear that, it's gonna freak you out. So
right.
We teach like the signs to look for, to understand. Just like I said, if your kid's locked in the room all day long, we're going to teach you, hey, if you have a kid who never comes out of the room, not even to go for a car ride or see friends, you need to check in, and here's the questions you can ask, and here's how to ask them. So that's one thing we do, which is great. And then I do one of my favorite programs, which is pretty brand new for us. We do too. We do something called O-Shift, which is a 6-week workshop that I do that focuses on self-awareness, the power of words, being in flow, change, personal responsibility, and learning how to not react and make assumptions. But our new initiative is I'm doing these youth mastermind groups where I'll take 15, 20 kids at a time. We'll actually meet twice a month for a year. And it's a year-long curriculum. And it's everything I just said about emotional intelligence. We're talking about those 6 things. We're talking about diversity and acceptance. We're talking about prejudice and how to battle that. We're talking about executive functioning. I'll bring in a college counselor to talk to the kids about what you need to do and how to prepare for college. I'll bring in a meditation expert. I'll bring in a breathing expert. And it's a year-long curriculum. And really, it's not for kids that are struggling. This is just, hey, the school's not teaching you this. I'm going to teach you this. This is
right.
Because if they're armed with these skills, like even money, like we teach economics in school. We teach them. We don't teach them how to balance a checkbook. We don't teach them how to understand the stock market. We don't teach them, finance. We really don't. We teach them the basics. But I have kids that go to college, and they're going to be an economics major, but they're like, I have no idea how a credit card works, right? Like so.
Yeah.
These are I'm working with them on life skills, right? But not basic life skills, but things that are going to benefit them. So imagine spending an entire year each week working, and it's not me lecturing, it's interactive. And then there's a couple of weeks in there where I'll say, we might see something in the news, right? Like something going on. Guys, I'll give them the topic. What do you want to talk about next week? You know what? I want to talk about what's going on with something in politics. Great. That's the conversation next week. And it is amazing. Like these kids, sometimes remember you were talking about the 30,000-foot view?
Yeah.
When it comes to some of the stuff that we can't seem to find common ground on, they can take that 30,000-foot view. Like I think half the world's problems teenagers can actually solve if we would listen to them.
Wow.
I've heard some amazing conversations, and I'm like, wow. Like even me as a coach, I'm like, that is brilliant. Like I never even thought about that. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that is such a great idea. I'm like, you need to be a politician when you get older because you can affect change and do something with that. But it's true. Some of these kids have so much knowledge, or collectively have so much to offer. And like sometimes we need to just do a better job listening to them. So these mastermind groups are my favorite. I love doing them. And we even do a project together. Like they'll do some type of social action, or, maybe they'll go volunteer at a nursing home, or I'll even say, let's go to a senior assisted living facility, spend an hour with an older person. They have so much wisdom to share, and they don't get to share it. And we in this country, I feel like we do a horrible job of respecting the elderly. Like every other country, they're revered. I don't believe we treat the elderly that way. And just imagine they live their whole lives. They've been through so much. Like how much wisdom is there that we're not listening to? So
yeah,
getting the kids to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. So I was on your website, and I was looking through your menu of programs, and I was quite intrigued. But I also read about the mastermind groups that you're doing with youth. I don't want to call them kids. They're not kids. They're really young adults or adults in the making. Let's call them that. And so I was like, wow, a mastermind for kids. I've never heard of that before. Could you talk a little bit about the mastermind?
That's what I was just referring to. That's what I was, all these.
That's the year-long, okay.
Because I belong to mastermind groups. Like, I have a great group of guys. We meet every Wednesday morning, and we're constantly sharing ideas on how to market our business, how to get our name out there, how to do this better, how to do that better, how to build a website. Like, just great strategies that we share with each other to help us all be better, successful businessmen. And I'm like, how amazing if I can have a group of kids that we can share all these strategies. Because the other thing this mastermind, I'm glad you re-asked that question, because this is something I forgot to say. I think the most powerful part of this mastermind group, there's two things. One, it absolutely gives kids permission to speak about what's going on with them, because other kids are opening up, so they feel comfortable opening up. And when you talk about what's going on, that's actually how you heal. So a lot of these kids are helping them, they're healing together. So that's the first thing. And the other thing it's great for a kid with social anxiety who struggles making friends, because I vet every kid that comes into this group. Like, the first question I ask you is, why are you here? Why you want to join? If you say to me, my parents made me, you're out. Like, I'm going to tell you straight up. So anybody listening that's thinking your kid coming, make sure they want to be there, because if that's what they say, they're not staying. Like, because they're not going to be there for the right reason.
Right.
So the kids that are in these groups, they want to be there. They want to learn. They want to interact. They want to support each other. A kid who struggles socially, to be able to be part of a group of kids, they're going to be so much more accepting and warm to that person. That's how they're going to find their tribe. So, like, I feel like I'm also creating tribes for kids.
Yeah, and I read about that, and I wanted to talk about that, because that is it's really important for all of us to have our tribe, but especially when you're young, because it can be awfully isolating. And I think those of us who do the best in life have people that we can count on for support when we need that support.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I read also on your website about the camaraderie that gets created in your groups, which is so important.
I mean, they're seeing each other twice a month for an hour and a half. So that's a lot. When you think about it, they're spending 3 hours a month together. But, they're also talking about some deep stuff. I mean, some of these conversations are like, I've shared this story before. I had two girls in one of my groups, and they were actually best friends, but they had a falling out for about a year. And what happened was, when they were in 11th grade, or 10th, maybe 10th grade, they were supposed to meet for lunch. And I guess their school was kind of near an industrial area. So they were able to go off campus for lunch, and there were like some places right there. And this one girl kept blowing her off. Like, they would make plans, and every week she'd be like, I can't go. And this one girl got so upset, she dropped her. She like literally just was like, you know what? I'm done with you. And just stopped being friends with this girl. It turned out this girl was struggling with anorexia. Ended up in like in an inpatient facility to deal with it. Her parents, nobody knew. And she kept obviously canceling, because she was embarrassed to go to lunch, because she didn't want her to see her in that state, getting up, going to the bathroom. And so instead of asking the question and saying, hey, why do you keep canceling? Like, what's going on there, right? That might have been a perfect opportunity for her to say, I'm struggling with something, I don't know how to tell anybody. Like, perfect opportunity to be there, to be supportive and help this person get the help they need. And instead, she made it about her, right? Wasn't self-aware, wasn't self-regulating, and decided to just be like, well, I'm done with you as a friend. And I mean, just that girl was devastated, not thinking for a second, is there a reason? Like, what? This is my friend. Like, we've been friends for a really long time. If she's all of a sudden blowing me off 4 or 5, you wouldn't think to be like, is something wrong, right? So it's so important with these groups. So when they shared that story, it was so eye-opening to everybody else in the group, because it was a real example of a real thing that happened. So all of a sudden, some of these other teens were like, wow, like, I get that. I'm like, yeah, do you see the importance of asking questions? Don't make assumptions. If something doesn't seem right to you, question it. Just question it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Somebody's going to say, right, fine, but question it. But if you don't question it and you just assume something and react accordingly, you have no idea. You can do more damage than good. So that was a huge lesson for that whole group. And it never would have happened if we weren't talking about reactions and assumptions. That was the topic of the day. And it was beautiful. These two girls just decided to share, and it opened up a whole conversation and opened everybody's eyes in the group. So these groups are so powerful. Like, I love them.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Let's talk a little bit more about the foundation. You are doing a fundraiser, correct?
Yes, October, it's coming up. October 14th is our annual fundraiser.
Okay.
It's at the, I know people fear from all over, but it's out on Long Island. We basically raise funds for programming. So I could deliver these masterminds. I could deliver our O-Shift program. I could deliver our youth mastermind, youth mental health training. And we also do mental health boxes. We actually have mental health kits with like books and strategies and all kinds of fun things for a classroom for teachers to share on how to work with mental health. We actually give these away to schools. So, if anybody on here is an educator, let us know. We can add you to the list, and when we raise the funds to do this, we'll be happy to send one your way. They're great. It has books, it has journals, it has NeuroGum, it has squeeze balls, it has a page with strategy, it has a magazine. What else? There's so much stuff. It's a great little box, and it has a whole kit on just great mental health tools that a teacher can use in the classroom with their students.
So for any educators that may be listening, how far is the foundation's reach?
We're based on Long Island.
Mm-hmm.
We'll send the boxes anywhere. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
We'll send the boxes anywhere. Listen, for us, we don't want to be on Long Island. We want to expand. We want to be doing this everywhere. Right? Listen, we've been around for 3 years, but we haven't really been focused on growth. Now we're in a very big growth stage. So, as president, I'm constantly reaching out to donors, looking for people to support our programming. I'm constantly writing grants and having grant writers submit grants for us, because the more programming we can do, the more impact we can make. And that's
excellent.
It's really about making impact.
So is the fundraiser a live event?
It's in person.
Okay.
It's an in-person event. We were like, enough. We need to get people back in person. But we were smart. We have a place that holds 350 people. And we're limiting it to like 125, 150. So it's not going to be a full room. It's going to be, and we're asking people to wear masks. You can't check it, but we're recommending people be vaccinated and wear masks. If they, we're not going to cheat. You can't police that.
Right. But, and so if someone would like to donate but cannot attend, how would they do that?
That would be amazing. If you go to tsvf.org, it's for the Sofia Balsamos Foundation. So tsvf.org, right on the front page, it'll say our fall fundraiser. And if you click on there, it takes you right to an Eventbrite page, and you can make a donation. We appreciate it. And if anybody listening is, resonates with what we do as a foundation and what I do as a coach, please feel free to reach out to me at keith@tsvf.org or keith@shiftyourpower.com. I would love to have a conversation if somebody's interested in sponsoring our programs. I can certainly go over costs and what our programs cost to deliver, but that's what it's about. And my job right now is to go out there and raise funds so I can deliver these programs to kids. And quite honestly, as we grow, I don't want to be the only coach. I'd love to have a slew of coaches who can go out there and deliver these programs for us. So like when you say, are we stuck in New York? No, I'll go anywhere, right now. But
okay. Well, you have a volunteer down here in North Carolina.
Perfect. There you go.
Because I would love to do that work. You and I have talked about this. I wanted to work with youth when I graduated from the Coaching Institute, but I wasn't really sure how to pull that off. And for anyone who's listening, both of Keith's website links will be in the description section. So you can just go in there and click on those links. As we come to a close, what else would you like to leave our listeners with?
I think just, if you're a parent, right, I think just teach your kids. Well, as a parent, learn to be patient with your kids. Be patient with your kids, because, they're exploring, they're experimenting, they're going to push your buttons, they're going to push the boundaries, right? Like, they're going to do that, but that's them wanting to grow and be independent. And, you got to learn to be patient with the kids. And like I said, speak to them. Don't speak at them. That's like a huge thing. And the other thing with your kids is when they're looking for help, you don't have to swoop in and save the day. Ask questions. Like when my kids say to me, I don't know what to do about this, my answer is always like, well, what would you do? What do you think you should do? help them problem solve, teach them scaffolding skills to get things done. I think that is key. And really just teach your kids to be kind, because that's really what it is, right? I mean, if you're just kind to each other, that makes the world a better place, right? It doesn't matter what people think. Everybody's entitled to their views. Just because one person has one view doesn't make them a bad person, right? It's their view. You may not agree with it. You don't have to agree with it, but it doesn't define who that person is. And I think teaching our kids kindness and acceptance is really important, because that's what leads to dialogue. And many times, when you have two opposing views, if you can actually, we can't seem to get two adults in our government to have a healthy conversation about anything. If you could get two kids in the room to talk about differing views, be kind to each other, imagine the work they can do. They will find common ground. They will find common ground. So
thank you for that. And yeah, if we could just spread that like jelly all over, because we all, again, going back to growing up and learning by example. So we all have our own lens through which we see the world that was developed by the way we were brought up, and religion influences that, and our parents influence that, and schools influence that. We're all different, right? So let's just be kind. Yeah.
You know what? Our enculturation. We have to be very conscious of our enculturation and learn to adopt. Learn to adapt to the changes that are going on, and not allow our past experiences to define us, but to be something we can learn from and be better. Because listen, as parents, we want our kids to be have it better than we did. That means they're going to do things differently than we did, and it's okay. Like, they should learn from our mistakes so they can do things differently. And I just want to thank Miriam and Maureen for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Miriam. I'm glad you enjoyed this.
All right. They're great ladies too. You should talk to them. They have great stuff to offer as well.
Yeah, well, I've not talked to Miriam, but I have talked to Maureen, and I have spoken. Yeah.
Awesome. Miriam's great too.
So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
This is great information. And you and I will talk again soon.
100%. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.